When it comes to new age RPGs, I'm not the biggest fan. Unless we talk in this guy, then I'm out. They're either too bare bones their game, either just a walking simulator with a story that is such vague in-your-face symbolism that you can't tell if it's genius or akin to a fanfiction on DeviantArt where the writer uses semicolons every 3 words that seem smart. If it's not obsessed with telling a decent story, then it's probably too heavily based on a battle system that isn't very good to begin with, as you go to place with no real meaning or understanding of why or how this is happening, or for what. If it's not either of those, then it's probably some fan tribute to a YouTuber where everything is a cringy reference to one of their videos.
Obtain dwarf stash.
Cool!
But on occasion, you'll find a great game. Like many RPG Maker games, the title screen is very basic with only 3 options. However, there's no sound effects or background music when it loads up, it's dead silent. And suddenly you hear wind blowing and a soft melody. When you hit begin, you're halted by a loud chime. The game tells you that it's not suitable for children under 13, probably for all the die-hard Undertale fans who found this in their Steam recommended. Huh, that's a weird way to start a game. I sure hope I'm not surrounded by a bunch of weirdos.
Oh, fuck!
You wake up in a bed surrounded by a bunch of midgets in cloaks and masks named Reaper, welcoming you with balloons. Then a big cloaked guy comes in screaming for balloons and shoots everybody out. Probably jealous that no one invited him because he yells at balloons. This big guy is revealed to be Grimm, the owner of Grimm's Hollow, and he tells you this is where the spirits of people that were too weak to go to the afterlife live and grow stronger as they eventually pass on. These spirits fight ghosts who are from people who are too strong a spirit they went crazy and refuse to pass on. And more importantly, you are dead. This is where the intro comes into play. How I like to interpret it is that the sounds you hear is your spirit traveling to the afterlife until it's suddenly struck and sent to Grimm's Hollow with a loud chime. Without getting into too many specifics, he tells you to get some rest. So you immediately get up and put on some new fresh robes, then hightail it the hell out of there to find your brother Timmy. Or you would, but Grimm locked the door.
Door stuck! Door stuck! Please!
But luckily a ghost is there to let you out after hearing you talk about Timmy, who we just met in the cave before getting here. Trusting you with his life, thinking about how you might be different from the other Reapers who are kind of nuts. How Grimm, the master of Reapers, missed him on his way out is beyond me, but you lucked out, so whatever. After heading outside your room and going down, you notice this game's overworld isn't perfect. It's great visually, don't get me wrong, but gameplay wise it's confusing as exits and entrances to other areas and buildings can just look like walls. It would have been nice if they took the Pokemon approach and just added like a rug or something. As you enter the cave to find your brother, you ditch your mask so you can show off your purple e-girl haircut and your eyes that make you look like you stole them from 2D from Gorillas. The Reaper guarding the cave immediately gives you the scythe to use on any ghost in the hopes of getting your DMs. Unfortunately for him, a ghost charges you and you have your first fight. The battle system is actually pretty interesting for an RPG Maker game. Not unlike Final Fantasy, you have a bar that slowly fills up based on your speed as you race with your opponent to get the first move. Unfortunately, just filling your bar faster than your enemy doesn't mean you get to take your time, because as you go through your menu and select how you want to attack, be it a normal attack or a special move, your opponent can interrupt and attack you in the middle of your thoughts. And this is where one of the game's biggest flaws come into place. As you continue throughout the game and fight stronger and faster enemies often attack you while you're in the middle of pressing the A button to select your attack. And while the game engine processes that, it'll stop you right in the middle of selecting that attack and make you wait for the animation to happen. I don't understand why the game engine can handle you selecting your normal attack and going through the minigame to attack them as they're damaging you, and this only happens with their normal attacks. When they do a special attack where you need to dodge, you can completely ignore it and continue to hit them with a normal attack or even with your special. I get that it gives you the sense of a real battle, but when I spam the A button waiting for my bar to fill up, and I can't even get to the normal attack minigame before an opponent gives off a long animated attack, it's annoying. Actually no, it doesn't give you any sense of real battle because it takes you out of the battle. It'd be way more engaging if the normal attack did not halt you and it just worked like the special attacks where you can multitask hitting them and then conveniently time your dodge. Upgrading your speed set doesn't seem to help either, as all the monsters seem to scale their speed stat, so it always happens in the early game where your stat spread matters due to less XP. Another thing worth mentioning is that when you're selecting an enemy to target for your attack, the arrow seems to distance itself from each enemy differently, so pairings of enemies make it hard to see which one you're actually targeting. Especially pairs where one is brought more forward than the other because the arrow targeting the enemy further back is directly on top of the other one. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's the mechanics. As a spirit, the reason you fight ghosts in Grimm's Hollow is to absorb enough of the ghost spirit energy so they can pass on because they have way too much of it. The spirit energy that you absorb from them will allow you to get stronger and pass on as well. The story element is a heavy part of the combat system. Rather than having mana, you have spirit power. At the start of every fight, it's always set to 0. You gain spirit power by attacking the ghost with a normal attack and land damage in a similar way you attack an Undertale. You press down to time it as your character brings down their scythe on the enemy. When you collect enough spirit power, you can use it for a special power attack. These range from things like stat buffs, status effects like poison or sleep, several combat attacks with different functions, or elemental attacks. Elemental attacks come in 3 types: blue, red, and purple. When fighting a ghost, they're always in one of these 3 different color schemes, and using the right attack will deal massive damage based on your special stat and the multiplier bonus of the attack. When you defeat an enemy encounter, you'll get points to level your stats.
Now let me be clear.
This is called spirit energy. It should be noted that the amount of spirit power that you save up till the end of the battle doesn't count towards the amount of spirit energy you receive for defeating all the enemies. Believe me, I tried. I didn't want to spend a ton of my turns on each enemy, so I spent a ton of my points into attack at the start of the game because it costs so little. I don't think I was supposed to do this though because I instantly turned the game into baby mode, and I killed everything pretty easily until I met these purple assholes and I invested in some purple flame magic attacks and boost my special attack. Or at least that was the case, but in my second playthrough, my attack stat was so high that I didn't even need it. The first special attack you're given is Pierce, which allows you to damage an enemy while ignoring their defense stat. I'm pretty sure this was because of the Jerry enemy, but again, my attack stat was so high I didn't need it either. Pierce is probably going to be your most used special attack outside elemental fires due to it basically being a perfect normal attack but with slightly more damage from ignoring defense, low mana value, and without doing the normal minigame. If you're a dumbass pleb that cares about that.
I'm stupid!
Progressing all the way through the cave.
Do you have any idea how fast I am? I'm fast as fuck, boy!
You hear your brother Timmy crying. As you run towards him, you're blocked by the ghost you met before in the house. Furious that you killed ghosts on your way here and that you weren't different than any of the other Reapers like he thought, he goes psycho mode and turns into this ugly eye monster. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a hard boss battle or like some kind of battle, but I literally one-shotted him and then killed all the other enemies in one hit, the next turn over with the new combat ability I picked up. After kicking Perry's ass with your epic gamer skills, you discover that your brother Timmy is now a ghost. Rather than killing him and letting him go to heaven or whatever, you hide him in your pocket. Just fucking stuff him in there. As you walk back to the base in the most super non-suspicious way, Grimm stops you and makes you sit down for tea.
See, Prince Zuko, a moment of quiet is good for your mental well-being.
After picking donuts at the clearly superior baking item, tells you that no one can go back to life unless they have a soul. When you die, your soul is destroyed and you either become a ghost or a reaper, which isn't too far from what we already know, but he mentions that sometimes a person comes back to the hollow with their soul still intact, and that those people can be returned back to life. 2 long teens of questions later, Grimm catches the baker and makes him come out as gay before telling him that he needs to accompany me to the other cave to teach me how to fight, not knowing that I'm already a global elite after raising my attack stat. Leaving Grimm after inspecting his closet, Timmy tells you that he already had a soul when he got to the hollow, and that some other ghost must have stolen it, thus giving you a clear objective: find Timmy's soul and bring him back to life.
Donut.
Picking up the baker and meeting his replacement standing in the exact same place, you head onto the cave. As the baker tries to explain how to fight, you immediately decimate a nearby ghost. Instead of questioning how you know everything already, he just decides to go with it. Continuing through the cave, you have a nice chat with the baker about the morals of killing ghosts. The baker tells you that he doesn't like it and instead pursued culinary arts because wasting your life doesn't matter when you're already dead. He then immediately rejoins your party by running headfirst into a pool of water next to you.
Give me the beat, boys, and free my soul!
Although a short discussion, it reminded me of all the other messages and other texts throughout the game, where people have also talked about the morality of killing ghosts. Supposedly you're sending them to a better place, but we don't know if that place even exists. Perry, the boss of the last cave, doesn't seem to buy it, and looks at you like some kind of murderer. The only reason he trusted you was because he thought you might have been different than the other Reapers, who he views as a bunch of crazed lunatics. And of course you would think that. I mean, if a bunch of people in robes and skull masks were running around the place killing everything, what would you think? Even the main character thought it was a bunch of weird cultists when they woke up, and Grimm mentions that every new Reaper thinks the same thing when they come to. Not too further in the cave, like literally 2 rooms later, Baker needs to take another break. Sitting next to a lake of water, Baker asks you questions about your childhood, revealing that the schools he grew up in when he was alive were extremely cruel and abusive. While on the topic of being nosy, you make Baker take off his mask to reveal his face, revealing an empty hood that he uses to store bread. He explains that the longer you live in the hollow, the more twisted your face becomes before parts just go missing. The eyes are always the first to go. It's not really shocking to the player who has been looking at the character's face the whole game, but you gotta remember there's no mirrors for her to look at, no feeling that anything was misplaced. You could argue that she could have noticed it sooner as she jumped over puddles, but why would she do that when she had no reason to? How often do you run to a mirror to check anything's missing? What would you do if something was? I like to think of this as a metaphor for the hollow. The longer you suck your grunting ghost for spirit energy to move on, the more you can lose yourself in endless repetition.
So I was sitting in my cubicle today and I realized ever since I started working, every single day of my life has been worse than the day before it. So that means that every single day that you see me, that's on the worst day of my life.
What about today? Is today the worst day of your life?
Yeah.
Wow, that's messed up.
So it's not surprising what happened next. After 2 rooms, there's another break with Baker as he finally reached the end of the cave. Bending across a huge chasm, there's a giant waterfall with a big hole in the wall called the Gate of Passing, where all the reaped ghosts and fulfilled reapers go to pass on. After literally just talking about ghosts with living souls being glowing green, a ghost that's glowing green appears. The ghost that stole Timmy's soul, so you immediately go and fight it. Because the ghost is in blue, red, or even purple, you can't effectively use magic on it. So good luck, magic-based users. Get fucked. After perfecting it with both dodges because you're a total fucking gamer, the soul falls to the ground. Taking in the satisfaction of being done with your adventure, Lavender slowly goes to pick it up, reminiscing of the struggle she's gone through, and as the credits begin to roll, Baker beats you on the back of the head and you fall unconscious.
What a twist!
You're woken up by another Reaper who tells you that Baker rushed off to the 3rd cave, which leads to the Gate of Passing. Before telling him to send Grimm over there too, you run after Baker and enter Cave 3. After destroying the entire local ghost population in a mad dash through Cave 3, you come across a shortcut out of there only for it to be blown up by an unkillable bomb ghost? What? Making it uncrossable and forcing you to travel through the cave the long way. I feel like self-destructing ghosts should raise some kind of questions on what we've been told so far, but I'll just leave it at plot. Immediately after this, you can talk to Timmy by using him in the inventory, opening the door to one piece of dialogue between the two that goes on for 1 minute and nothing else. Brilliant. Further in the Cave 3, there really isn't anything other here than just milling through ghosts, raising your stats to kill them faster and proceeding to the next room. I'd like to think this is because Lavender is so focused on getting to the Gate of Passage as fast as possible to beat Baker there, but I feel like there just could have been more. The player themselves could also be feeling a sense of pacing and want to beat this cave as fast as possible for the same reasons as Lavender, but I can't say that's for everyone. In the first cave, this process of just killing and proceeding wasn't a problem because the player was already focused on immersing themselves, planning their skill tree, and figuring out the game. And in the second cave, there was frequent intermissions with Baker that gave very important dialogue that established the setting and the way this world affected its inhabitants. I just wish that Timmy instead took the place of Baker in the same way, giving dialogue in his own intermissions that established more about how the two felt and interacted with each other based on their past experiences that they had in the living world. This was seemingly the game's intentions, as they now allow you to use a Timmy item in your inventory to spark a small dialogue telling Timmy what he already knows for reasons we already know. It was a perfect opportunity. You didn't think to use it? Fortunately, the game does think to give some insight into their backstories, because at the end of Cave 3, the two's path is blocked by a ton of ghosts crossing a hallway.
Now, Donna, you got quite the vent today. It sounds like what's going on with you. What's the issue?
Well, I've been involved in 3 separate car accidents involving deer.
Mm-hmm.
Each of these incidents, they've occurred shortly after I saw a deer crossing sign on the highway. I mean,
are you kidding?
I understand.
Speak for yourself, bitch. Here Lavender talks about how their dad died because their parents fought so much that the stress killed him. Probably because it was the real world and no kind stranger could back him up with Reddit gold. And so after their mom cut herself off from everybody, you had to do everything around the house. And that's it? Yep, that's all you get. No actual development on Timmy, just a sad backstory on how hard things were for Lavender in the living world, which barely affects your view of the game or its characters. You may argue that this gives some insight into Lavender's behavior throughout the game with her A-type personality when it comes to helping her brother, and while that certainly is true, I feel like we really didn't need that. We didn't need a backstory as to how she's able to act this way for her brother. We already know, she loves and cares for him. If I had to pick between development behind a character that is the sole reason for the progression of the game, one who's rarely able to talk or express really anything, or some kind of reason as to why Lavender decided not to stay in bed at the beginning of the game, I would pick both, because all you had to do was give him one more piece of dialogue, or just anything more than one piece of dialogue when using the item in the inventory. Anyway, you enter the second part of Cave 3, which I call Cave 4, even though it's not really a cave, because it's finally a new area.
Delicious. Finally. Some good fucking plot.
The last cave is barren of dialogue, and if you're just rushing the end, it's pretty damn short, even compared to other caves. It's not just the dialogue that's barren, the whole place is. You hop island to island in a still lake surrounded with white, while other caves had this great music and sound design. The track is ominous and tame. When you hop into Encounter, there's no switch from this melodic track to more upbeat jam, it just keeps going. It really makes you pay attention to the sound effects of your attacks as they rip through your enemies, which were otherwise just appealing jingles to your battle. The game really hits a tone it wants to while still keeping it inside its theme. There's no cop-out where they switch to a completely different style to unsettle you. Not that this decision was undeserved or well executed, I'm just saying. It's not just the theme of the cave where this game gets creative and unsettling, it's the ghosts too, when they're not reusing them from the last cave.
Monkey.
All of a sudden, the ghosts take a much sadder or evil approach, particularly in Goopier, which is an obvious evolution of an earlier enemy named Goop, giving you a sense that this is where the more powerful and nefarious ghosts like to hang out. Maybe as the ghost continues to survive in this world, they grow more powerful and their spirit energy only continues to increase. There's also a lot more interesting designs, as now there are ghosts that live in pairs and have attack patterns that work off each other, like Trio, which are all different ghosts that attack in unique ways. Too bad I just use Cleave and they all die before they can do anything. Another enemy is the Lovers, who resemble the two dogs from the beginning of Undertale, which blocks your path to Snowden, as if the similarities between the games were already enough. The Lovers don't seem to do anything but heal each other, and then after killing one, the other one doesn't do anything. They don't get mad or even try to attack you more aggressively, they just keep healing a dead ally. Were you just trying not to rip off Undertale as much as you could, or did you really not think of that? And that's about it. There's nothing else here but to take 2 minutes getting to the exits to the Gate of Passing. At the Gate of Passing, you get there before Baker and confront them in a fight that is either boring and pointless if you're underleveled.
What the fuck?
Or if you're maxed out with your stats and moves, realize how bloated their health is, it only makes this enjoyable at max level. However, getting to try out all these new moves you got after grinding is pretty fun. I just wish it would have ended in half the time. But hey, we actually got a boss that didn't die in one hit from my attack stat. After the fight with Baker, there are 4 possible endings. These branch out based on the 2 variables, whether you're max level and if you beat Baker. The specifics of the 4 endings I don't feel like I need to talk about. They're much better experience through actually playing the game. There's not much to discuss about them except that each of them ties the game together, providing new insight into Grimm's character and some great dialogue that actually makes Timmy a character by making it about you. Unfortunate. The game will take maybe 2 or 3 hours to complete. Play it yourself now that I spoiled 99% of the game. Or watch a YouTube video. You've already wasted enough time with this one. This is a part of the video where I'm supposed to tie this 18-minute long video down into a 30-second summary that could have just been posted instead of mulling through 3 months of work, planning, and procrastination. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do 7 out of 10 needs more Undertale.